Hi, everybody. I am Daniela Gomes. I work at the Center for Sustainability Studies here in São Paulo, in FGV, Fundação Getúlio Vargas. I coordinate the local development program within the center, and I'm going to share with you today one of the experiences we are currently ongoing in the Brazilian Amazon with communities. So I hope we can just share thoughts and have a conversation.
Yeah, I can go. So I'm Fernanda, and I'm also at the Center for Sustainability Studies. Daniela and I are also PhD candidates at FGV, so we are having our PhD there too. And at the center, well, I'm working at the center for 10 years now, and the center is a little bit older than that, and we will share a little bit more on it. And I'm right now coordinating the Education for Sustainability program. That basically we plan, design, and roll some courses inside FGV for undergrads and for graduated students, but also for companies, NGOs, other organizations in this thematic of education for sustainability, using mainly transdisciplinarity as our approach. And that's a little bit.
Team Amaya.
You know me, so I don't think I need to say anything. But I did run the center at Ivy for 15 years. And I do research on time, space, and scale. And what that means is I'm really interested in place-based research. And specifically, I have doctoral students that are doing research in Tibet. Laura is doing research in the Amazon. And I've had research, Anna Kim, who's actually part of our group too, if you've met her, she's done research with tea farmers in Africa. So there's an aspect to which I'm really sympathetic to this topic. So beyond me being a facilitator.
Yeah, and I'm Maya Fischoff. I work for NBS, and I did a PhD in environmental psychology, which is sort of about how people relate to their environment. So also kind of sense of place, but just from a different perspective. And I used to have a much more international orientation. I spent a year in Fiji and some time in Cameroon, and used to travel a lot. And then I just decided I got homesick, and also realized how culturally American I am. So I just came to terms with it. But really interested in what you're doing.
I met Fernanda in the matchup section yesterday, and Dani, one of the co-organizers in Vienna. I can't talk anymore. It's been a long week. I just want to say that I know so many really powerful Brazilian women. So some of my best friends from Belo Horizonte, you will know the work of the Quilomba Collective. There's also a group of Brazilian women in the US who are actively engaged through research in actual real world impact. And so I really wanted to be in the session because I think, I'm now based in Western Europe, and field work is so rare, honestly. And that's, I think it's a pain that so much is just done from desk research, and we don't go into our Amazon, which, every country, of course, has, places for field study, and we don't do that enough. So I just really want to hear and learn more from your experiences.
Can I just echo that point about strong Brazilian women? And I wonder if to survive in Brazil that you have to be, for a woman, you have to be strong. So you're either strong or you're squashed. Yeah, anyway, interesting point, Melda.
Nelly, feel free to have your camera on too. I know Nelly's helping us as a moderator, and Ada, yeah, but you're fantastic. So feel free to really join us. We'll feel more like a group. Tima, you're muted.
Ada works with our team, and she's got a really cool background. So Ada, this is so relevant to you too.
Yeah. I'm the digital marketing officer for NBS, and I'm still kind of new to the sustainability space, but I'm looking to learn a lot. especially about how digital marketing or digital technologies can facilitate sustainability.
And Nelly, same.
Yeah. I am also super happy to be here. I'm actually, before I joined Daniela's team here in Vienna, I was an energy analyst. So my expertise is kind of in the energy sector and in particular the energy sector in Eastern Europe. So the sustainability topic is like huge for us for many different reasons. So I'm super excited to hear your presentation today.
Great.
I just have to say this. I'm so happy with this group. It was nothing that I was expecting. And I'm so happy because we create a presentation only with images and just for us to talk about sensitive issues about working with sustainability. So I'm really, really happy with this group. Thank you so much. Just to say that at the beginning.
And I would also like to add that this is a women group, so perfect. And it's interesting because we're talking about communities, and that's a lot of caring perspective. So it's a quality that we have, right? So let's do it. Danny, you will project from there, or yeah? We just prepared a few, very few slides to introduce our center. I believe that Maya and Tima already know, but we thought it was important. And so our center is connected to the FGV Business School in São Paulo. And you can go, Danny, for the next one. Yes. And our center exists since 2003, so it's almost 20 years old. It's one of the oldest centers, I believe, in the world on sustainability. And nowadays we have a team of almost 65 people working, and we are researchers from different areas. So it's a very multidisciplinary team. And what we do in the center is applied and academic research. In the most part, applied research. We are not yet that good on academic research, on publishing what we do in the applied field, but we are getting better. And we do a lot of projects with social impact in the field. That's our biggest, the majority part of our projects are in the field. You can go, Benny, please. And what we do, basically, how we deliver that, we help business guidelines for companies, management tools for companies, for NGOs, for governments. We work a lot with the government in different spheres of the government, trying to give inputs for public policies. That's an important part of our job here. We created a lot of database systems. Here in Brazil, we were responsible for GHG protocol inventories, corporative inventories, and we have more than 300 companies reporting GHG protocol in our database systems. We also produce a lot of multimedia content, course designs, that's the part that I coordinated, and facilitation of processes, as we do a lot of projects in project-based. Yeah, that's it. And to end this presentation, our passions, the team, the subjects that we are working on climate change and ecosystem service, communities and local development, that's what Danny is talking about in a few minutes, sustainable finance, sustainable value chains in small entrepreneurships, and integrated education for sustainability. That's the main topics that we are working right now. So,
okay. Okay, so just briefly, I am working for 10 years now at the center, and I I was a researcher, and I am now the coordinator since 2014 of the local development program. Basically, our work is on what we call territorial governance in the context of territories hosting large-scale infrastructure and mining projects. So what we are interested to know is that what happens with a territory and their social networks and their environmental networks when they receive this massive investment of a big power, of politic power and economic power, what happened with the territory. So we have been studying and doing what we call applied research, and it means a lot of interventions, a lot of political articulation, less academic production, more intervention, basically on building with participatory approaches, building territorial agendas, social, environmental, financial instruments, and working with public policies in terms of investments in infrastructure and safeguards, social and environmental safeguards. And we have been focusing on population displacements in the last couple of years, because this is a huge problem in Brazil, especially with hydropower plants and even mining. And we also work together with NGOs and grassroots organizations in territorial protection, and with public policies in planning and monitoring and environmental licensing. The whole idea is to strengthening capacities of local communities to be able to dialogue about social and environmental impacts of this kind of investment. So mainly our experiences in the Amazon, although we have been working also in other parts of Brazil, in Minas Gerais, more recently with the disaster of the Rio Doce River, with the biggest environmental disaster in the world, unfortunately. And we also have some projects in the south of Brazil. We have been working in the main massive investments in Brazil, the hydropower plant of Belo Monte in Pará, the hydropower plants of Madeira River in Rondônia, and more recently with a federal road, that this is the case I'm going to present to you today. And also we have been working with mining projects as well. And our base of partners is public sector, international donors, also private companies interested in learning more, working more with communities, and also NGOs. And please interrupt me and if you have questions, because the beauty of a small group is that we can have a conversation like we were together in a room. So today I just wanted to share with you an experience we are having in a project that we started in 2019, is the Promoting Transparency and Territorial Governance in the context of roads development in the Brazilian Amazon, the case of the federal road BR 319. This is a 3-year project funded by Gordon and Betty Moore Foundation, is an American foundation. And the whole idea is that we want to strengthen capacities of local communities to deal with the social environmental impacts already in place with this road, and that is going to be even worse because part of the road is going to be paved soon, probably. So we are in the heart of the Brazilian, the Amazon rainforest. We are in Amazonas. Amazonas is the Brazilian state with the most high level of high rate of forest cover. So there are some other states in the Amazon that are already with high rates of deforestation. Amazonas is one of the states of Brazil with the best forest cover, a lot of areas, protected areas in place. And this particular road crosses 800 kilometers of forest, so it's a huge road. It connects 2 main Brazilian capitals, Manaus in Amazonas to Porto Velho in Rondônia. And it's interesting because the 100-kilometer stretch close to Porto Velho is paved already, and the 100 kilometers close to Manaus is already paved. But then you have this 600-kilometer stretch, we call the middle stretch of the road, that crosses protected areas, traditional communities areas. And right now there is this huge social and political conflict because the federal government wants to push forward the pavement of the road, local communities also are willing the road to be paved, because I'm going to show you how the road is not possible to cross the road, especially during 6 months of rain during the year. And environmentalist groups are completely against the road, the pavement of the road, because this is historically, and all the literature points out that when you have a paved road, you have more vectors of deforestation. So this is the place we are working for three years now. And the whole idea is to build territorial development agendas with a participatory approach, agendas built by the communities that live alongside the road, so they can have a more, they can have their voices and their conception of development in place in this whole political discussion on what is development for this region. So
Danny, quick question. Why does the federal government want to pave the road?
Because, well, for a lot of reasons. First of all, the whole idea that infrastructure means progress. It's almost this fetish of infrastructure meaning progress. There is no economic viability study regarding this road, and there is a lot of studies showing that actually this road doesn't help any kind of economic dynamics in the area, because the whole economic dynamics in the area is through rivers, for instance, to exchange goods and commodities. But then there is a lot of political pressure in the area that this road is going to bring more development. There is a lot of interest groups interested in capitalizing themselves with the pavement. There is maintenance, there is a lot of work to be done in the road, so there is a political pressure on this road. But one of the main criticisms of the environmentalist groups is that there is no evidence that the road is actually going to facilitate transportation between capitals or between people. But it's very important to say that we have been there since 2019, and the local communities, they really want the road to be paved as well, because for them, for short distances, for them is very important to be able to transport goods, to transport themselves, to reach education and health. So it's a conflict there in place.
Sorry, and the foundation is supporting the pavement. How is the foundation involved?
The Moore Foundation?
Yeah, the Moore Foundation.
No, the Moore Foundation has a financing line supporting conservation. They are really interested in conservation of forest, forest conservation. But in Brazil, infrastructure is one of the main vectors of deforestation. Everywhere when you have a road or you have a hydropower plant, you have high rates of deforestation. So Moore Foundation wants to do innovative approaches for infrastructure construction, therefore guaranteeing environmental protection.
Thank you.
And our idea for this project is that if we have a community stronger to discuss in a better level the social and environmental impacts in place and foreseen, maybe we will have a better chance to have a sustainable development agenda for the area, instead of just bringing the pavement of the road and then no voices of communities to be heard. So it's kind of a tricky project, and it was very interesting, even with the Moore Foundation, the discussions on how strengthening communities' capacity will lead to conservation. It's not a very clear casual
line of sight. Yeah,
but we are getting in there, and actually we are happy that this discussion is going to be, it's being fruitful in the area. Okay, please make questions for me. So the whole idea of deforestation in place, this is an actual picture of the area alongside BR 319. This is just a small video just to show what's happening in the federal road during the years already, with this territorial dynamics called fish spine or fish backbone, which means if you have the pavement of the road, illegal loggers start to get into the forest and start getting the more rich log from the forest, and then they put cattle, and then you have this process of deforestation in the long run. And then I'm going to show you some pictures of a very famous Brazilian photographer, Lalo de Almeida. This is a section of the road close to a village that is already devastated, with a lot of illegal logging, a lot of land grabbing, a lot of illegal activities in the road. And this is a typical scenario. You have forest, and then if you get deep into a small road, you see that there are already people invading the forest and logging illegally. But also we still have a lot of pristine forests and pristine rivers, and a lot of rivers that are conservated alongside the road. And we do have communities. Communities are usually invisible by public policies in the area. The people are thinking about the road, and they think, oh, there's nobody there. There is this narrative that the road is just going to cross forests. Even by the environmentalist groups, they say, oh, we should not have the paved road because there's nobody there. And actually, there are 200 rural communities, traditional communities alongside the road or being influenced by the road. And these communities, they are riverine communities, traditional communities. They have a very strong connection with these rivers alongside the area. They have local production. There is agricultural farming, but also local production to be sold in the villages or in the capitals. There are culture, there are life. There is a lot of, there is this strong women leadership base in the area, very beautiful, historic, and they have handicraft. They have a lot of cultural traditions in place. And also we do have cities, small cities, less than 10,000 inhabitants along the road. And with the cities, and because of illegal logging and because of land grabbing and because of the lack of state, we do have a lot of violence. Small scale violence in the cities, big violence, institutional violence. This is pictures from 2019. This was the headquarters of the environmental agency from Amazonas that was completely destroyed, and the staff expelled by illegal loggers because they were not happy with the command and control measures in place for controlling deforestation. And also we have this strong problem of connectivity. Along the whole 600 kilometer stretch, there is no internet access and no phone access. So very, very poor digital connectivity. This is a picture of an old public phone that, as you can see, it's not working. So if you cross the road, we did that twice already, you can spend 10 days crossing the road with no internet connection. And when we were crossing the road, this is a typical section of the road. You meet drivers of trucks transporting goods that are actually stuck for 4 days in the road without being able to get out of it. And this is a very interesting picture because it's a truck stuck in the mud of the road, and they are carrying scholar boats to bring for the municipality. In the Amazon, there is a lot of transportation of children that is made by boats, not buses. So this is very important for the area. And this truck was stuck for 2 days there, carrying on boats for children to the schools. And also you have this politics, and this is something that we met during the road. Amazonas state was the highest rate votes for Bolsonaro in 2019. And so the whole conception of sustainable development, of an economy of the forest, is still very apart in the narratives and in the beliefs of the Amazonians, of the people from the Amazonas state, unfortunately. And I hope this is changing right now. We don't know yet.
That's such a beautiful metaphor, beautiful, perfect metaphor. If you go back,
it is
of Bolsonaro stuck in the mud and sort of driving things into the ground.
Yes. I love this picture.
Since I interrupted you, can I ask you another question?
Sure, please.
So the rivers have been the mode of transportation primarily before the road. and
Yes.
during the roads. But they haven't had the same devastation as the roads have caused. So what is it about river traffic that's really different from road traffic?
Well, river traffic is expensive, especially if you take, for example, families. They have to buy fuel, diesel, which is the main fuel for the Amazon riverine community. So it is expensive, but mainly because Brazilian has this very particular way of seeing roads. Yes, maybe we should, Maya maybe can help us in terms of psychology of infrastructure, because Brazil is so big and we use, our base of transportation is roads. And there is this huge political influence on building roads. So there is a lot of studies since back in the 80s showing that using the rivers as the main transportation model is much more efficient and for sure much more environmentally friendly, but there is still this high agenda of roads in place, unfortunately.
Yes, and I believe that there are also some other things that we have a lot of corruption regarding infrastructure. So when you build roads like that, there's a lot of corruption involved in Brazil historically. We have here Petrobras, that it's a producer of oil that pushes also this economy on road transportation. So it's a complex situation.
Yeah.
I would also like to ask a question. So, I mean, the situation in Bulgaria is very similar. You know, we are building a highway for 40 years and it's like 100 kilometers and it's still not ready. But I wanted to ask, so how do they go into those projects? So they announce public tenders, and because you mentioned that there is no communication around this road, so isn't it supposed to, like, the communication channels, aren't the companies supposed to kind of implement that well when building the road? And then if they do it with public tenders, my related question is actually, aren't they supposed to like make environmental impact assessment? Because you mentioned that some of those areas are protected.
Yes, perfect, Nelly. Thank you for the question. Brazil has a very sophisticated environmental law system, and we do have, since the Brazilian Constitution in 1988, a very strict environmental licensing process, which means any kind of investments, any kind of infrastructure investments needs to go through a process of environmental impact assessment, and then public consultations by the law, and then social and environmental safeguards, and then social and environmental conditionalities for the investments to be approved and for the roads to be approved. Unfortunately, this works poorly in Brazil. Consultations are very poorly done. There is this whole discussion on consultations on indigenous populations. Brazil has signatored the prior consent consultation for indigenous population, but we never did that for sure. So we do have institutional instruments in place, and there is a lot of pressure for them to keep working and working better and better. But we are still very far away from a very precise process, and still political will plays a big role in the decisions making. So in this process, the federal road of BR 319, there were a licensing process in place for the road, and now there is this a legal battle between the federal government and the federal prosecutor ministry, because they say we need a new environmental impact assessment of the pavement of the road, and the federal government, they say we have already this in place, we are just making a maintenance. There is a road there, we are just maintenance and bringing the pavement. So there is this legal discussion now, and this is the heart of the conflict right now, if the road is going to be accepted to be paved or not. We are there now.
In addition, with this government, with Bolsonaro's government, the Ministry of Environment was working to destroy the good law that we have here in Brazil, that it's so well done. And yeah.
For instance, the whole environmental agency responsible for environmental impact assessment and conditionalities in Brazil is completely empty now. They made it completely staff is forbidden to talk in public. There is no investments in the public sector there. So there are various forms that you can make them weak without changing the law. So we do have the law, but the enforcement of the law is poorly done, unfortunately. So this is not something that it happened only in Bolsonaro's government. It's important to say, but for sure, the last 3 years got really, really worse. Yeah. So our main job there was to create these territorial development agendas. So we put in place, the team of the project is 20 people, and we started with a strong local stakeholder engagement in 2019 with a lot of people engaged, 200 people involved in workshops. We were really happy. We were spreading the word, spreading information regarding the environmental licensing process of the road. The whole idea was not to advocate against the pavement. The whole idea was to share information to see, so what do you think is important for your region and how can we transform this in a territorial plan? And we conduct a first round of workshops. It took 2 months to go through the whole area. It was more than 100 rural communities reached by our workshops. And we were asking things like, what is development for you? So it was the first step of a methodology of creating territorial development plans. And we were happy doing this. We also worked with specific target groups, especially women. There is this strong women leadership base in the area. So we work together with women and also together with youth leaders. And we were so happy that everything was going smoothly. And also we work together with the Federal Prosecutor Ministry. They have a forum, a public forum in place that was organizing meetings every month in Manaus. And we were able, through our project, to bring community leaders to the forum to discuss this whole discussion of the environmental licensing process. So this is something that our project was also supporting, community participation in the Federal Prosecutor Ministry forums. So we had this whole idea in place, a lot of rounds of workshops, practical interventions, the participation in the forum, gathering with youth leaders, women leaders, and then COVID hit us hard and we had to cancel everything. And so we had the whole base engaged, more than 300 people engaged, and we had to just stop. And Amazonas was the worst state hit by COVID in Brazil. The rates of contamination in Amazonas was the highest in the world. So the Amazonas state was a laboratory of what not to do in face of COVID. And even now, the federal government is being actually criminally accused to use the Amazonas state as a laboratory for what they call the herd immunization. So there is suspicious that the federal government deliberately didn't apply measures of social isolation and masks use and everything, just to test if a Brazilian state could survive and could reach herd immunization. There is this criminal prosecution right now in Brazil regarding Amazonas state. So you can imagine what was happening in Amazonas, a lot of deaths, a lot of pressures on public system. It was like terrible. So the first 3 months of COVID, we were just dealing with emergency activities. And so we were helping everything in our hands possible to bring information, to create web chats, to share information on COVID, to create masks and everything. It's completely absence of the state in Amazonia. So everything that you can do, you can help. But the one thing that that was very rich for us is that when we create this research project, we had a team of 20 people. 10 of them were local leaders. We decided that we had this experience before when we work in the hydropower plant of Belo Monte in Pará with youth leaders. And we did this again here at the Bear 319 project. So we had 7 mobilizers. They are actually young leaders from the territory. Most of them, they have not even graduated. They don't have an university degree, but they know everything about the territory. They are so engaged, politically engaged, and they know everything about their communities. So they were part of our team. And also we had 3 amazing women. This is the women, Jolemia, Jonea, and Nada. They are community leaders. They are from the territory, from different parts of the territory, and they are senior researchers, just like our senior researchers here in São Paulo. They are 3 senior researchers. We did this in 2019 without knowing about COVID, of course, and it was so interesting for us and such a challenge for us from the South with our big aspirations of being intellectually superior. We were working together with a lot of people from the territory, and it was so rich and so interesting, and we learned so much from them. They know everything about the territory. It was so beautiful. And we create a process of strengthening capacities of the local team. They wanted that. They wanted to be part of the Fundação Getúlio Vargas as well. So when COVID hit us, we were able to slowly start working again in the communities, because the 10 local team, they were each one of them from a different community along the road. So they were able to start working together with their community and with social isolation. And because of in the Amazon rural communities, everything is outdoors. The kitchens are outdoors. So we assess risks, and we realized it would be possible to have small groups and small talks. And we kept continuing going very slowly the discussions on the territorial development agendas. We also create podcasts, and we create WhatsApp groups. This is something really crazy. The social conditions in the Amazon is so poor that people don't have money to access internet. They don't have computers, but everybody has a cell phone, a mobile, and everybody has a very cheap plan to access WhatsApp and Facebook. So we create teams of WhatsApp, and we create almost a competition between different teams of different territories to create consultations and to build the territorial development agendas. We also
Danny, you said earlier that along the road that there was very little internet access and cell phone, I assume. So I don't understand.
Yeah, there is lack of internet connection, but there are some areas where you have a lot of blind spots of internet. But then you have, for example, in WhatsApp, if you go to a place, you can hear audios and you can send audios. So you don't have continuous WhatsApp connection, but you have areas where you can reach them. So what we're doing is that we use a lot of audio messages that people could receive someday, and they could also send audio messages, and we could receive someday. So they don't have continuous internet, but of course they go to places where they have antennas and they can reach it. So it is more difficult, but it's possible.
Yes. Fantastic, thank you.
And during the project, we also invest in one station of internet in an area where there is no internet at all, and so we were able to make these connections. And then we create some youth leaders formation. And one of the things that we were not expecting to have is that we were able to bring youth leaders from other parts of Brazil to share their experiences. So we have this whole connection with different youth, and it was amazing for us. We never thought this would happen. We never planned that, and it was amazing to do so. We also did, I just want to stop this presentation because it's too much, but we also worked together with the Federal Prosecution Ministry with continuing virtual forums. And it was amazing because with public managers, and we thought nobody would come. And actually we had sessions with 60, 65, 70 public managers all over the municipalities in the area. They came to discuss, and they were arranging ways to connect internet to discuss with us social policies, environmental policies, productive activity policies. And I highlight here the picture of the State Secretary of Health of Amazonas and Municipal Secretary of Health of municipalities. They were in these encounters because for them to discuss territorial development for them was something good, because they were facing such dramatic discussions and emergency with COVID. So they were willing to participate in a process where they could plan a long-term goal for the area. So this was really a surprise for us. It was really interesting. And also we were able to exchange experiences between our projects. We have another project on territorial monitoring networks in the Amazon with another team, but we were able to put together people from the area of BR 319 together with people from Rondônia, for instance, to talk about territorial protection. This is something that we wouldn't be doing if we were not virtual, everything was virtual. And just to finish, of course, we were managed to do a very draft version of territorial development agenda for the area. We are finishing it right now in September this year. But of course, everything is different. And what is most different is that we are missing the most important things when we are not in the field. We are missing the stories, the laughs, the fun, the joy, everything that actually make us connected and that make us more aware and we can understand more the territory, that we can facilitate more this process as a center of studies. And of course we miss the rivers that we would swim and we enjoy our weekends there. But yeah, anyway, that's it. I'm just going to interrupt this so we can share experiences. So of course, the whole experience of working in COVID is not the highlight of the project, but for us it was interesting to be challenged to do how can we bring the voices of the territories if we are not there and if they are not able to connect. And the most learning process for us is that we had local team. And this is something that Fundação Getúlio Vargas doesn't understand very much, to be honest. It's not very valuable. So it was a lot of fights to have a local team together with us in this project, but it made a lot of difference for us. Fernanda, I don't know if you want to share some questions.
Well, I think Maya has one.
Well, I want to share, this is amazing. And I actually went last night to a local meeting about a big solar farm that's going in my rural area, you know, just huge. And the local community is pretty opposed. And I was talking with the developers, and they're all from Chicago, which to this rural area just seems, you know, the big city unfathomably far. I'm in rural Ohio. And I said, like, why don't you hire somebody local? And they said they're not qualified. Like, it was just fascinating, you know, and I was like, so anyway, that really resonated with me.
So I have another, oh, sorry, Ada, please, no.
Yeah, I mean, I was just going to say that this is very relatable coming from Nigeria. I come from this small village that has a very similar geographical area, but of course not as many forests as the Amazon. But you know, the problem for me is just trying to find a solution to the dilemma of the local people wanting more development and, you know, finding the balance between that and what is actually good for the environment. Usually when we go back to the village and we talk with the local people and we talk about how we don't want development to come to the villages because we love how beautiful they are, they react very violently, like they're angry because they go through a lot of suffering back in the village, having to maneuver through bad roads, not having internet, not just having things we have back in the cities. So it's a really hard situation to be in. And I think education really plays a huge role. Just letting them know that paving roads and all of that isn't really the key to development. It really isn't the key to the key to development, really. So yeah, I really, this is really enlightening for me, and I think education really plays a good role.
One of the most powerful things that you said, Danny, was actually at the very beginning and sort of reinforced what I was saying, but that the road represents progress. And I thought there is something very, there is something, I guess, in all societies, it feels around the world, that we believe that development and progress are somehow linked. Development being the development of something big, right? Infrastructure. Yeah, so, and then this notion of education, I'd love to unpack that a bit more, but before we do that, one thing I'm just, a question is, so what happened? And I hate even asking the question because I want to say, well, so what's the outcome? What's the impact? And that's so Western. But there is this aspect of, how can we know that we're making, your approach is making progress in a way that's really building a community? How can we know? Does that make sense? Question.
Yes, well, it's a very tough question. I think, when Moore contact us, they wanted, I love Moore Foundation. They provide us this project, and we have a very good connection with them. They are analyzing a possibility to go further in the project. Yeah. And at the beginning they say, okay, what are the KPIs? What are the key performance indicators of your project? And they wanted us to link this process in terms of diminishing deforestation rates in the Amazonas. They say, okay, how much hectares of forest you're going to conserve after this 3-year project? And we said, none. There is no connection of deforestation rates. We won't be able to do that. We're just having this very weak hypothesis that if you bring information, if you let people talk, if you let people understand what's going on, if you hear them, if everybody hears them, including Moore Foundation, including Fundação Getúlio Vargas, maybe something is going to change in the long term, the process of understanding what is development. That's why our methodology starts with questioning people, what is development? And when you ask this in the communities, they don't say the road. They say the air I breathe, my family, my animals, the river, the fish. So it's the whole process of contrasting different visions of what is development. And maybe this is something, we were talking now, Tima, here in Brazil, a lot about bioeconomy. And there is a lot of people in Europe, a lot of organizations, European and American organizations saying, oh, let's invest in a bioeconomy for the Brazilian Amazon. It's a very beautiful idea to use the forest as an economic base, yes? But for us, we are concerned that this is going to be another process of social exclusions, because then you have a lot of very smart people from the south of Brazil building these companies and having no respect of the time of the Amazon, of the space. I love that you work with place-based research, because this is the whole idea of respecting the territories, yes? So maybe we have to, at least in Brazil, we have to put the social inclusion in the heart of sustainability. And this is not something that is easy. Even in the center, the social issues are still, it's part of sustainability, but people still look at us like tree huggers. It's difficult to change this idea of social inclusion. I don't know.
What you're saying though is so powerful. And I feel like the sustainability community has sort of gotten lost, and I'm not being critical, but that we can get confused for wanting to preserve the old, or thinking that's just about having trees or whatever it might be. We don't have a clear vision. This is what we meant to do yesterday, but recognizing that a virtual format in a short period of time won't allow us to do it. But if we all sort of said, this is that vision of what this is, inclusiveness is definitely one of them. And there is this notion of regeneration, that we're not exceeding our consumption, that, you know, but doesn't mean, this goes back to Ada's point, but education is really key. Access is really key. All these things, health. I feel like we need to have those conversations. If we knew where we were going, we would fill that in. And so when the Moore Foundation asked you, what's your KPI, that's a wrong question. But we still need to have the right question of what is that vision for which we're heading? I don't know. Do you follow? I don't know. I feel like that we need more of that, of what does this vision look like? And then not how do we measure that, but can we go back and have periodic reflection of, is this a place that we want to go? And are we moving at least in that direction? Fernanda, sorry.
Yes, I was connecting with that and with what Ada said before on education, because yes, we have a role there in the territory to bring more engagement and talking to communities. But here at the center, we also do the same with our students of São Paulo, the very rich students that are studying business here in our school. So we have to educate them so they can change their vision on what is development, what is progress, because it's these students that will be the future managers that keep asking the same questions. What are the KPIs? So here we have a lot of initiatives that we take the students to the Amazon and get them to know the territory and provoke this question. What is development? It's
yeah.
Yeah.
I can't wait. I'm sorry, I'm going to say this to our little group of 6 women. I can't wait till women rule the world. We will stop looking for that measurement.
This is on the record, Tima. You're being recorded.
Well, that's true. Please record it.
But Tima, there is growing scientific evidence of that. If you see the performance of women leaders in COVID combat, it's
over and over again. Women have a very different view of the world.
Yeah, it's true. And even this idea that you're saying we need different visions. We did the vision of sustainable development. It has to be changed because we are still. I think we're still in the small boxes of what is, it's an economic development with social justice and environmental protection. This is not enough. This is not enough to express what should be the sustainable development, right? So yes, I think women are much more prepared and aware to create different visions of what is sustainability.
That's probably a good place to end. I have to scoot out to Skooks to go to the networking. Join us, please, if you can. Yeah, I'd love to even carry this on. But anyway, so thanks. That was a beautiful presentation. Loved it.
Thank you so much for hearing us.
No, it was really impactful for me. So thank you for that.
I'll stick around for 1 more minute because I have a question. But see you, Tima.
Okay. Yeah. Bye, Tima. Nice to meet you.
I really also wanted to muito obrigada to both of you. It's a really powerful work you're doing. And you know, at the beginning, Fernanda said we're not yet sure like about the research part because we're doing so much applied research, but we're not sure about publishing it. And my gut feeling is that you could have so much extremely rich ethnographic data. And it's not impossible to publish even in the top journals. They're opening up a little more to the stories and narratives and ethnography. So we need to be patient. The reviewers are still very fuzzy about it, but I think it's getting there. I mean, I'm a qualitative researcher, so I'm extremely up for the real, you know, what's happening on the ground data. And I think you could have that. You could have these first person narratives. And I had completely, you know, this line of thinking that, so my work is not on environmental sustainability. You know, you said there's so many angles to it, and I do more work on the human rights and then the social side. And it just popped in my head that when we work with NGOs on forced labor, illegal logging always comes up. So, you know, you build that road, you get illegal logging, and next thing you know, you have child labor or forced labor because it's all under the table. And how do you get the data on that? Well, if you are talking to communities, I assume sooner or later they can also start complaining if they open up to you about what's happening to, you know, who's working in these places and who's suffering from that. And I just think you could discover so much more, be also not just the trees, but also people who you know. So just continue that hard work, because there's so much more that can come out of that, I think, right?
Mild, I love that you mentioned about academic production, because this is something that we suffer about, because we are poorly we are poorly getting there. And but that's a lot of prejudice against this kind of research and applied research, and we still have to be proving for the center, for other colleagues, that this is science as well, and this has a value anyway. But we are more interested in the interventions, no matter what.
Honestly, you know, and this is also on the record, I think it's more science than a lot of
Science. Yes.
It actually is real science. It's just we also need to shift our mentality of what a publication looks like, and then it's really sad, but hopefully the shift will happen.
Yeah. But in terms of human rights, not only forced labor, but also sexual exploitation of women and adolescents is something really huge in terms of hydropower plants interventions and road interventions, because you have a peak of workers, mainly male workers, and then you have high rates of this kind of violation of human rights, and it's still going a lot in Brazil. And it's an issue.
So you can tell More Foundation, you know, you asked us for one thing, we brought you 5 things instead. You know, like,
yes.
Expect the unexpected. That's our KPI.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, ladies. I'll have to go because also for the organizational reasons. But thank you, really, really obrigada, and I hope to stay in touch.
Thank you. Thank you, Ada, for sharing your experience in Nigeria as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nelly.
Yes, thank you, Nelly.